Good morning, children. Today we are going to learn a new topic of grammar, that is active and passive voice. So, children, let's start. Active and passive voice. Already you have learned in your 6th, 7th, and 5th standard. We'll just recap the topic. So, let's begin, children. Active and passive voice. Sentences can be active or passive. First, I will explain you active form. In active sentences, the thing or person performing the action is the subject of the sentence, and the thing or person affected by the action is the object. Say, for example, thing, person performing the action plus verb plus thing or person affected by the action. The example is the professor is the subject, teaches is a verb, the students are the object. Now, in this sentence, the professor is performing the action, whereas the students are affected by the action. So, this is the example of active voice. Now, let's take one more example. John washes the dishes. Here in this sentence, John is a subject, washes is a verb, and the dishes are the object. And John is performing the action, whereas the dishes, that is the object, are affected by the action. So now children will stop here and will continue further in the next video with the passive form. Thank you. So children, let's come back to the active and passive voice. In the previous video, we discussed the active voice. Now in this video, we are going to discuss the passive form. So let's start. In passive sentences, the thing or person affected by the action is the subject of the sentence, and the thing or person performing the action is optionally included near the end of the sentence. Means thing or person affected by the action plus be plus past participle of the verb plus by plus thing or person performing the action. Now let's see in the example. Say, for example, the student are taught by the professor. Here the student is a subject, are taught is passive verb, by the professor, in this professor is the object. So the student, that is the subject, is affected by the action, whereas by the professor, that is object, is performing the action. Let's take one more example. The dishes are washed by John. Here in the sentence, the dishes is a subject, are washed is a passive verb, by John is object. So in this sentence, the dishes are affected by action, that is are washed, and John, the object is performing the action. Now, let's see some solved examples. Question is, change the voice of the following sentences from active to passive voice. The first question is, Geet is selling her house. So, we have to change the sentence into passive form. So, the answer will be, her house, that is the object, now will become the subject. Her house is being sold by Geet. Next. Second, Kiran was using the computer. The answer is, the computer was being used by Kiran. The question is given in active form and we have changed in passive. That is, the computer was being used by Kiran. Third example is, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. This is an active form and we are changing it into passive form. Its answer is, the telephone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell. So now children will stop here and will see the remaining examples in the next video. Thank you. Let's come back to the topic of active and passive voice. Children, we were discussing the solved examples of active and passive voice and we were on sentence number 4. So the question is, shut the door. Children, as you can see that in this sentence there is no subject. It is the example of imperative sentence. So this type of sentence you have to begin with, let the door be shut. Next, question number 5. They are making a movie on Sachin Tendulkar's life. So the answer is, A movie is being made on Sachin Tendulkar's life by them. Next, question number 2. Change the voice of the following sentences from passive to active. And the sentence is, the boy was chased by the dog. Children, this sentence is given in passive voice and you have to change in active voice. So the answer will be, the dog chased the boy. Next sentence is, the chart was made by Raj and Tia. The answer is, Raj and Tia made the chart. Next, sentence number 3rd. Let the salad be passed here. And the answer is, pass the salad here. Fourth sentence, the book is being read by the entire class. And the answer is, the entire class is reading the book. Next, the last one, fifth sentence. Kinjal was interviewed for the job by them. And the answer is, they interviewed Kinjal for the job. So now children, we have completed the topic of active and passive here. And after this video, you will get a PDF copied on all the notes in your English grammar notebook and practice all the questions sincerely. Thank you. Good morning, children. Today we are going to learn a new topic of grammar, that is types of sentences. So let's begin, children. Types of sentences. Children, sentences are generally of 3 kinds based on its structure. The first type is simple, second is compound, and the third type of sentence is complex. Now I will explain you what is a simple sentence. A simple sentence is the one which has a subject, predicate, and a finite verb. It is a single, independent clause. Now, let's take the example. Say for example, the sun shines brightly is the example of simple sentence because it has a subject, the sun, and it has a predicate, shines brightly, and it has one finite verb, that is shines. Let's take one more example. Second, the bus was late. In this sentence, the bus is a subject and was late is a predicate and was is a finite verb. So it is an example of simple sentence. Now let's take one more example. I looked for Ram at this stop. In this sentence, I is the subject, whereas looked for Ram at this stop is the predicate and looked is a finite verb. So it is example of simple sentence. Now let's see the second type of sentence, that is compound sentence. Children, a compound sentence is the one which is made up of 2 or more simple sentences and is usually connected with one of these coordinating conjunctions. Now, coordinating conjunctions you are already learned in the previous lessons. So I will tell you these coordinating conjunctions are for, and, but, or, yet, and so. These are the examples of coordinating conjunctions, and for you to easily remember these coordinating conjunctions, you can keep in mind the word fan voice. F for, A for and, B for but, O for or, Y for yet, and S for so. So it will tell you that fan voice are the examples of coordinating conjunctions. Now, let's see in the example. The first one is, Jim waited for the train but it was late. Jim waited for the train is one simple sentence and it was late is the another simple sentence which is joined by a coordinating conjunction but. So it has become a compound sentence. Jim waited for the train but it was late. Now let's see the second example. It rained heavily and we were drenched. It rained heavily is one simple sentence and we were drenched is the other simple sentence. And these two sentences are joined by a coordinating conjunction and. So it has become the compound sentence. It rained heavily and we were drenched. Let's take one more example. Ria left before I arrived, so I did not see her. In this sentence, Ria left before I arrived is one simple sentence. I did not see her is the other simple sentence, and these two simple sentences are joined by the coordinating conjunction so. So now it has become a compound sentence. Ria left before I arrived, so I did not see her. So now children, the next type is third one, complex sentence. We'll see this complex sentence in the next video, and now we'll take a break of 1 minute. Thank you. So let's come back to the topic of types of sentences. Children, in the previous video, we have learned what is a simple sentence, what is a compound sentence, and now in this video, we are going to learn what is a complex sentence. So let's begin, children. A complex sentence is the one which is made up of at least one main clause and one or more dependent clause, usually connected with one of these subordinating conjunctions. The subordinating conjunctions are after, although, because, if, since, when, while, whenever, though, unless, wherever, and as. Now, let's take the example. The first example is he returned home because he was tired. Children, in this sentence, there is one main clause, he returned home. There is one dependent clause, he was tired, and a subordinating conjunction, because. So, it is an example of complex sentence. He returned home because he was tired. Now, let's take another example. Tony visited the Trevi fountain, which is in Rome. Children, in this sentence, Tony visited the Trevi fountain is a main clause, whereas which is in Rome is a dependent clause. And it is these two sentences, these two main clause and the subordinate clause are joined by the subordinating conjunction which. So it is the example of complex sentence. Tony visited the Trevi fountain which is in Rome. Now let's take one more example. My mom smiled when I made dinner because she knew how inexperienced I was. Children, in this sentence, there is one main clause, my mom smiled, whereas one dependent clause, when I made dinner. There is one more dependent clause because she knew how inexperienced I was. So it has more than one dependent clause. So this is the example of complex sentence. And there are two subordinating conjunctions, and they are when and because, which is joined to the main clause. My mom smiled when I made dinner because she knew how inexperienced I was is the example of complex sentence. Now, next we will see the solved examples. Question is, identify whether the given sentences are simple, compound, or complex. The first question is, Anna wanted to go for the parachute ride, but she was afraid of heights. In this sentence, there are two simple sentences. Anna wanted to go for the parachute ride is one simple sentence, whereas she was afraid of heights. This is the another simple sentence. And these two simple sentences are joined by a coordinating conjunction, which is but. So we can say that it is the example of compound sentence. So now children, we'll stop here and we'll continue with the remaining solved examples in the next video. Thank you. Let's continue the topic of types of sentences, children. In the previous video, we were discussing the solved examples and we were on example number 2. So let's start. The sentence is, Arush was offered a job while he was still studying in college. Children, this is the example of complex sentence because it has one main clause, Arush was offered a job, and one subordinate or you can say dependent clause, he was still studying in the college, and a subordinating conjunction while. So this is the example of complex sentence. Now let's see the third example. Ishan was playing in the garden. Children, this is the example of simple sentence because it has one subject and one predicate and a finite verb. Ishan is the subject, was playing in the garden is a predicate, and was is a finite verb. Now let's see the fourth example. Prerna was happy to help Lekha. This is the example of simple sentence because it has one subject, Prerna, and one predicate, was happy to help Lekha, and a finite verb, was. Now, let's see the fifth sentence. Gunjan failed to apply for the concession, so her name was not on the list. This is the example of compound sentence because it has one simple sentence. Gunjan failed to apply for the concession, and the another simple sentence, her name was not on the list, and these two simple sentences are joined by a coordinating conjunction. So this is an example of compound sentence. Now let's see the sixth sentence. Gitika would often forget to switch off the lights when she left a room. This is the example of complex sentence because it has one main clause, Gitika would often forget to switch off the lights, and one dependent clause, she left a room, and a subordinating conjunction, when. So, this is the example of complex sentence. Gitika would often forget to switch off the lights when she left her room. Now, let's see the last seventh sentence. Zinal choreographed all the dances for the competition. This is the example of simple sentence because it has one subject, Zinal, and one predicate, choreographed all the dances for the competition, and one finite verb, choreographed. So this is the example of simple sentence. So now children, we have completed the topic of types of sentences, that is simple, compound and complex. So now we'll stop here. After this video, you'll get a PDF copied on all the notes in your English grammar notebook and practice all the questions properly and sincerely. Thank you.